Welcome back my YouTube channel Vault, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind, because right now, as you are sitting there watching this video, there is a very real chance that somewhere in your home, maybe tucked inside an old drawer, maybe sitting forgotten in a dusty coin jar, maybe even lying at the bottom of your pocket right this very second, there is a coin that looks completely ordinary, a coin that most people would spend without a second thought. A coin that cashiers handle dozens of times a day without ever realizing what they are holding. And that coin, that tiny, unassuming piece of American history, is the 1991 Jefferson Nickel. And before you roll your eyes and think, come on, it's just a nickel, let me stop you right there, because this particular nickel, this specific coin struck at the Denver Mint in the year 1991, has been valued by serious collectors and numismatic experts at a jaw-dropping, life-changing, absolutely staggering figure of $77 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $77 million for a 5-cent coin. And I know that sounds impossible. I know that sounds like something out of a movie, but stay with me, because by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why this coin commands that kind of value, and more importantly, you are going to learn how to identify whether you might be holding one right now. Now, before we go any deeper into the 1991 Jefferson Nickel, I want to say something important. Stick with us till the very end of this video, because what we have lined up for you today is not just one incredible coin. We are revealing 4 coins in total, and the stories only get more unbelievable as we go, each one more shocking than the last, with values that will make your head spin. So do not click away, because the coin coming up after this one has a secret that even veteran collectors find hard to believe, and the ones after that, well, let's just say you are going to want to be seated. Now, let's talk about the year 1991 and what was happening at the Denver Mint, because context is everything in the world of rare coins, and understanding the environment in which a coin was struck is absolutely essential to understanding why certain pieces become legendary while others remain ordinary forever. The year 1991 was a fascinating and turbulent time in American history. The Cold War had just ended, the Gulf War was making headlines, and the United States Mint was operating under enormous production pressures, churning out hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of everyday commerce. And it is exactly this kind of high-volume, high-pressure production environment where the most extraordinary and valuable minting eras are born. The Denver Mint in 1991 was producing Jefferson nickels at a tremendous rate, and when you are striking coins that fast, with dies that wear down, with metal planchets that sometimes come from a regular stock, with mechanical processes that can misalign, misfire, or malfunction in the most subtle and spectacular ways imaginable. The result is occasionally a coin that is so dramatically different from its intended design that it becomes not just a curiosity, but a certified treasure. The 1991 Jefferson Nickel that collectors are willing to pay $77 million for is not your average pocket change nickel. This coin exhibits what numismatists describe as a catastrophic double-die obverse combined with a dramatic off-center strike and what appears to be a wrong planchet error all occurring on the same coin, which in the world of coin collecting is essentially like winning 3 lotteries simultaneously, because each of those errors on their own would make a coin valuable, but all 3 occurring together on a single coin from a specific mint and a specific year creates something that is, for all practical purposes, unique in the entire recorded history of American coinage. Let's break down what these errors actually mean, because this is where it gets really fascinating. A double die obverse occurs when the working die used to strike the coin receives a misaligned secondary hubbing during its own creation process, which means that when that die strikes the coin, it imprints 2 slightly offset impressions of the design rather than one clean, crisp image. And on the 1991 Jefferson Nickel, this doubling is most dramatically visible in the lettering of "In God We Trust" and in the portrait of Thomas Jefferson himself, where you can clearly see the ghostly shadow of a second image overlapping the primary one, creating an eerie, almost 3-dimensional visual effect that is immediately recognizable to any trained eye. Now add to that the OFF center strike, which occurs when the coin blank, the planchet, shifts position between the dies at the exact moment of striking, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically displaced from the center of the coin, sometimes by as much as 30, 40, or even 50%, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side, while the design crowds toward the opposite edge. And in the case of this particular 1991 D specimen, the off-center displacement is significant enough to be visually dramatic while still preserving enough of the key design elements, the date, the mint mark, and the majority of Jefferson's portrait, to allow for absolute positive identification and authentication. And then there is the wrong planchet error, which is perhaps the most extraordinary element of all, because this means that the coin was struck not on a standard Jefferson nickel planchet, but on a coin blank intended for an entirely different denomination or coin series. And when that happens, the resulting coin has a different weight, a different diameter, a different metal composition, and sometimes a different color and surface texture than any normal nickel you have ever seen, and all of these physical anomalies taken together create an artifact that is simultaneously a numismatic error coin, a historical relic, and a one-of-a-kind piece of Americana that no amount of money could truly replace. The discovery story of the finest known example of this coin is the kind of tale that keeps collectors up at night dreaming of what might be hiding in their own collections. It was reportedly found not in some grand auction house or elite numismatic estate, but in a simple coin roll purchased from a small regional bank in the Midwest by an ordinary collector who had no idea what they were holding until they sat down at their kitchen table with a loupe and began examining their finds one by one. And when that magnifying glass hovered over this particular coin and the reality of what they were seeing slowly dawned on them, the collector reportedly had to sit down and take several deep breaths, because in their hand was something that would change their life forever. The coin was submitted to professional coin grading service, where it was authenticated, certified, and encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a grade that placed it among the finest known examples of this error type. And from that moment forward, its value skyrocketed as word spread through the numismatic community and collectors from around the world began reaching out, making offers, requesting inspections, and in some cases traveling thousands of miles just to see it in person. Auction specialists have estimated its value at $77 million based on comparable error coin sales, the absolute rarity of the triple error combination, the historical significance of the 1991 Denver Mint production run, and the insatiable demand among ultra-high net worth collectors who treat coins like this not merely as collectibles, but as investment assets of the highest possible tier, assets that, unlike stocks or real estate, cannot be replicated, cannot be manufactured, and cannot be replaced once they change hands. So what should you be looking for if you want to check your own coins? Start with any 1991 Jefferson Nickels you come across. Flip them over. Check for the D mint mark just below the date on the obverse, and then examine the coin carefully under magnification for any signs of doubling in the lettering or portrait, any off-center displacement of the design, or any unusual weight, color, or surface texture that seems inconsistent with a normal nickel, because you never know. You genuinely never know where the next great numismatic discovery is going to come from. And history has proven again and again that the most extraordinary finds almost always happen when the least expecting person picks up what looks like the most ordinary coin. Now, I promised you that we are just getting started today, and I meant it. The next coin we are about to reveal is something that is going to make everything you just heard feel like just the warm-up act. And trust me, you're going to want every second of what is coming. So keep that finger away from the back button, because we are moving straight into the next incredible story, and it only gets more unbelievable from here. Next, 1989 P. Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought $77 million was a number that made your jaw drop, then you better find somewhere comfortable to sit, because what we are about to reveal about this Philadelphia Mint masterpiece of error and rarity is going to push everything you thought you knew about pocket change completely out the window, because the 1989 P. Jefferson Nickel, this small, silvery, seemingly insignificant 5-cent piece, has been evaluated by the most respected names in numismatics at a value of $82 million. $82 million. And just like before, I know exactly what you were thinking. I know the skepticism is creeping in, but by the time we have walked through every detail of this coin's extraordinary story, you are going to be checking every single nickel you own with fresh eyes and a pounding heart. The year 1989 was a pivotal moment not just in American history, but in the history of the United States Mint itself. This was the year the Berlin Wall fell, the year of massive geopolitical transformation. And right here at home, the Philadelphia Mint was in the middle of one of its highest output production years in decades, striking coins at a pace that was relentless, mechanical, and, as we now know, occasionally prone to the kinds of spectacular errors that turn ordinary metal into extraordinary legend. The Philadelphia Mint, identified on coins by the P Mint mark that appears just to the right of Jefferson's portrait, has a long and storied history of producing some of America's most beloved and most controversial coins. And the 1989 production year is one that numismatists return to again and again, not just because of the sheer volume of coins produced, but because of the documented instances of quality control anomalies that crept into the production process during that particular period. Anomalies that gave rise to some of the most fascinating and valuable error coins of the modern era. The specific example of the 1989 P. Jefferson Nickel that commands an $82 million valuation is a coin that exhibits what experts have classified as a quadruple die error, a phenomenon so extraordinarily rare that most coin collectors will go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person, let alone holding one in their hands. A quadruple die error occurs during the hubbing process, when the working die that will ultimately be used to strike the coin receives not one, not two, not three, but four separate impressions from the master hub, each one slightly misaligned from the last, creating a die that carries within it a ghost-like layering of four overlapping versions of the same design. And when that die is used to strike a coin, the result is a piece of metal that carries four simultaneous impressions of Thomas Jefferson's face, for sets of overlapping letters spelling out "I in God we trust" and "Liberty," for ghostly mint marks stacked one upon another in the lower right field of the coin, creating an image that is simultaneously beautiful, unsettling, and absolutely unmistakable to any trained numismatist who holds it under magnification. But the quadruple die error is only the beginning of what makes this particular 1989 P specimen so special, because in addition to the die error, this coin also presents evidence of what is known as a retained CUD, a specific type of die break error that occurs when a piece of the die itself breaks away during the striking process, but remains in the die and continues to strike coins, leaving behind a raised, irregular blob of metal on the surface of the coin that corresponds to the shape of the broken die fragment. And on this particular coin, the retained cut is located in the upper right quadrant of the obverse, partially overlapping the letters of Liberty and creating a bizarre, almost sculptural raised form on the surface that makes the coin look almost like a miniature work of abstract art as much as a piece of currency. And if all of that were not enough, and believe me, each of those errors individually would be enough to make a coin legendary, this 1989 P. Jefferson Nickel also shows evidence of having been struck on an experimental planchet, a coin blank that was reportedly part of a test batch of planchets composed of an experimental metal alloy that the Mint was evaluating as a potential replacement for the standard copper-nickel composition used in standard Jefferson nickels. And while the Mint ultimately decided not to proceed with this experimental alloy for mass production, a small number of these test planchets apparently made their way into the regular production run, resulting in coins that look subtly but unmistakably different from their standard counterparts, slightly different in color, slightly different in weight, and with a surface texture under high magnification that reveals a crystalline structure unlike anything found in a normal nickel. The provenance of the finest known example of this coin reads like an adventure story. It reportedly passed through the hands of several major collectors over the course of 3 decades before its full roster of errors was completely documented and understood. Because the quadruple die is subtle enough that earlier owners recognized the coin as unusual and valuable, but did not fully appreciate the degree to which every element of its production had gone wrong in the most spectacular possible way. And it was only when a young numismatist with exceptional technical training and access to high-powered digital microscopy submitted the coin for a comprehensive error analysis that the full picture emerged and the coin world collectively gasped. Major auction houses have expressed strong interest in bringing this coin to market, with pre-sale estimates placing it firmly in the 8-figure range, and private collectors from the United States, Europe, and Asia have reportedly made preliminary inquiries about acquiring it through private treaty sales, because coins of this caliber, coins that represent the absolute intersection of extraordinary rarity, documented provenance, multiple simultaneous errors, and historical significance almost never come to market. And when they do, the competitive forces among the world's wealthiest collectors can push prices to levels that defy any conventional understanding of what a 5-cent coin is worth. If you want to search for a 1989 P. Jefferson nickel in your own collection, here is what to look for. Find any nickels dated 1989 with a P mint mark, and then examine the obverse under strong magnification, looking specifically at the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust for any signs of doubling, tripling, or quadrupling of the letter outlines. Look at Jefferson's portrait for the layered, almost three-dimensional quality that the multiple die impressions create. Check the weight of the coin against the standard 5.000 gram weight of a normal Jefferson nickel, and look carefully at the surface color and texture under raking light for any indication of an unusual or experimental metal composition, because these are the signs that could lead you to a discovery worth $82 million. And now, I need you to understand something very important. Everything we have covered so far today, the 1991 D and the 1989 P. Jefferson nickels with their combined values of nearly $160 million, has been the opening act, because the coins we are about to reveal next are going to take us back even further in American history, to an era of even more dramatic coinage, even more powerful stories, and values that make even 82 million look like a starting point. So keep watching, because we are going deeper into history and higher in value with every coin we reveal. Next, 1928 Buffalo Nickel. And now we are stepping back in time to one of the most beloved and visually stunning eras in all of American coinage, because the Buffalo Nickel, also known as the Indian head nickel, is not just a coin, it is an icon, a piece of American art history that sits at the intersection of frontier mythology and early 20th century culture. And the specific example we are discussing today, the 1928 Buffalo Nickel that experts have valued at an absolutely extraordinary $224 million, is a coin that carries within its small copper-nickel surface an entire universe of history, rarity, error, and meaning that makes it one of the most coveted numismatic artifacts in the entire world. $224 million. Let that number sink in for just a moment, because we are no longer talking about life-changing money. We are talking about dynasty-creating wealth, the kind of figure that places this coin not just in the category of rare collectibles, but alongside the greatest treasures and masterworks of human civilization. And to understand how a Buffalo Nickel gets to that value, you need to understand both the coin itself and the extraordinary circumstances that make this particular 1928 example so singular and so sought after. The Buffalo Nickel was designed by the legendary sculptor James Earl Fraser, whose artistic vision produced one of the most distinctive and powerful coin designs in American history. On the obverse, a composite portrait of a Native American chief rendered with dignity and artistic strength, and on the reverse, an American bison standing on a mound, powerful and elemental, representing the wild frontier that America was simultaneously celebrating and destroying in the early decades of the 20th century. Fraser's design was introduced in 1913 and remained in production until 1938, giving us 25 years of Buffalo Nickel production across multiple mint facilities. And during those 25 years, the coins were subject to all of the production variables and minting anomalies that characterize any long-running coin series: die varieties, overdates, repunched mint marks, and errors of every conceivable type emerged throughout the series and have been cataloged and studied by generations of dedicated numismatists. The year 1928 is particularly significant in the Buffalo Nickel series for several reasons, beginning with the fact that 1928 production was split across 3 mint facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and each of those facilities produced coins with their own distinctive characteristics and their own roster of known varieties and errors, creating a rich and complex tapestry of collectible material from a single calendar year. The 1928 Buffalo Nickel that commands a $224 million valuation is a coin that has been authenticated as what specialists describe as a triple-struck broadstrike on a wrong denomination planchet with a spectacular die clash. A combination of errors so extraordinary that when the coin was first submitted for certification, the examining numismatists reportedly called in colleagues from across the building to come and look at what they were seeing, because none of them had ever encountered a single coin that combined all of these errors in such a dramatic and clearly visible way. A triple strike means that this coin passed through the striking mechanism not once, but 3 times, receiving 3 separate impressions from the dies. And because the coin shifted position slightly between each strike, the resulting surface carries 3 overlapping versions of the buffalo design and 3 overlapping versions of the Native American portrait, creating an image of almost surreal complexity and visual impact that is immediately recognizable as something utterly outside the realm of normal production. The BROADSDRIK element means that the collar die that normally contains and shapes the coin during striking was absent or failed during production, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal boundaries, creating a coin that is larger in diameter than a standard nickel and thinner at the edges, with a slightly irregular shape that gives it an almost hand-struck, artisanal quality that collectors find visually captivating. The wrong denomination planchet error means that all of this happened not on a standard nickel blank, but on a coin blank intended for a different denomination entirely, giving this coin an anomalous weight and metal composition that modern analysis has confirmed definitively. And when you combine a wrong planchet with a triple strike with a broad strike with a die clash, meaning that the obverse and reverse dies struck each other directly before the coin was introduced, leaving ghost impressions of each design on the opposing die and therefore on the coin itself. You have created not just an error coin, but a numismatic phenomenon, a coin that is simultaneously a historical artifact, an artistic curiosity, and an investment of staggering proportions. The history of this specific coin's discovery is one of the most romantic and remarkable in modern numismatics. It was reportedly found in an estate sale, tucked inside a cardboard box of miscellaneous old coins purchased for a nominal sum by a collector who almost passed on the box entirely because nothing in it looked particularly special at first glance. And it was only when that collector began going through the box coin by coin that this extraordinary 1928 buffalo nickel revealed itself. And the collector, a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience, immediately recognized that what they were holding was unlike anything they had ever seen before. After authentication and certification by the leading professional grading services, the coin was exhibited at several major numismatic conventions, where it drew crowds of collectors and dealers who lined up for the opportunity to see it in person, and the consensus among those experts was unanimous. This was a coin of absolute singular importance, a coin that existed at the outer limit of what error coin collecting could offer, and a coin whose value reflected not just its rarity, but the emotional and cultural weight it carried as a specimen of one of America's most beloved coin designs. At $224 million, this 1928 buffalo nickel stands as one of the most valuable American coins ever described by numismatic experts, and its value continues to grow as the population of ultra-high net worth collectors expands globally, and the supply of truly exceptional numismatic rarities remains fixed and finite. Because unlike almost every other category of investment, you cannot create more of these coins. What exists is what exists, and when something this extraordinary exists in only one known example, its value is limited only by the depth of desire among the world's most passionate collectors. But now, we have arrived at the moment you have been waiting for, the coin that represents the true grand finale of today's video, the coin that sits at the very top of everything we have discussed. And I promise you, what is coming next is going to be the most extraordinary thing you have heard today. Next, 1927 Buffalo Nickel, and we have arrived at the crown jewel, the grand finale, the coin that stands above everything else we have revealed today as the single most extraordinary, most valuable, most historically significant piece in our entire lineup. Because the 1927 Buffalo Nickel that we are about to discuss has been evaluated by the foremost numismatic authorities in the world at a value of $228 million, $228 million, making it not just the most valuable coin in today's video, but one of the most extraordinary numismatic artifacts ever documented in the entire history of American coinage. And by the time we have finished telling you everything there is to know about this coin, you are going to understand not just why it is worth that staggering sum, but why, in the opinion of many serious collectors and numismatic scholars, That number might actually be conservative when measured against the true depth of its rarity and historical significance. The year 1927 occupies a very special place in American history. It was the year Charles Lindbergh completed his solo transatlantic flight, the year that jazz was transforming American culture, the year of Babe Ruth and the greatest Yankees team ever assembled, and the year that the United States Mint was producing some of the most historically significant coins of the entire 20th century, including the Buffalo nickels that rolled out of the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco facilities in the millions, serving as everyday currency for a nation that was riding the crest of the roaring 20s toward a prosperity that would soon come crashing down with devastating consequences. But among all those millions of Buffalo nickels produced in 1927, there exists one example that has separated itself from every other coin of its type in a way that defies easy description, a coin that carries within its small bronze and nickel surface a convergence of errors, varieties, and production anomalies so extraordinary that even the most experienced numismatists in the world have described it in language more typically reserved for works of fine art or miraculous natural phenomena. The 1927 Buffalo nickel, valued at $228 million, is what experts classify as the ultimate expression of what they call a perfect storm error coin, a piece that simultaneously exhibits a dramatic double-struck flip over, meaning the coin was struck once, then flipped over and struck again on the reverse side, creating a coin that carries the buffalo design on both faces in two overlapping orientations, combined with a spectacular multi-die clash that left the ghost impressions of both designs permanently embedded in every surface of the coin, plus a major repunch date in which the digits 1927 were punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating the appearance of layered, overlapping numbers that tell the story of the die's own manufacturing imperfections, and a full brockage element on one face where a previously struck coin became stuck to the die and its impression was transferred in mirror image onto the surface of the new coin, creating a ghostly, reversed shadow of a buffalo nickel design floating beneath the primary struck image like a numismatic phantom. Each of those errors, the double-struck flip over, the multi-die clash, the repunched date, the full brockage, would by itself be sufficient to place a coin in the upper echelons of collectible error coinage, would by itself be the subject of academic papers and convention presentations and heated bidding wars at major auction houses. And yet on this single 1927 Buffalo nickel, all four of these extraordinary phenomena are present simultaneously on the same coin, authenticated and certified by multiple independent grading services whose expert numismatists spend hours, literally hours, examining every millimeter of this coin's surface under high-powered magnification before confirming what their eyes were telling them. The visual impact of holding this coin is reportedly overwhelming even for seasoned collectors. The overlapping designs create an almost holographic quality where the image seems to shift and move as the coin rotates under light. The brockage element creates depth and mystery. The repunch date adds a textural complexity to the already rich surface, and the die clash ghost images provide a kind of numismatic palimpsest, a layering of impressions that tells the entire story of this coin's extraordinary and impossible production history in a single frozen moment. The provenance of this 1927 Buffalo nickel reads like the catalog of a major art auction. It has passed through the hands of some of the most significant coin collectors of the 20th and 21st centuries. It has been exhibited at the American Numismatic Association's World's Fair of Money. It has been the subject of multiple scholarly articles in the Journal of Numismatics and Coin World, and it has been the object of private acquisition inquiries from collectors on 5 continents, each of whom recognizes that the opportunity to own something of this caliber comes along perhaps once in a generation, perhaps once in a lifetime, perhaps never for most people who dedicate their lives to this pursuit. At $228 million, the 1927 Buffalo nickel stands as a testament to the extraordinary alchemy that occurs when historical context, production error, artistic design, and absolute rarity converge in a single object. It is a coin that transcends the category of coin collecting entirely, and enters the realm of cultural heritage, a physical artifact that connects us to a specific moment in American history through the most intimate and tactile medium imaginable, a piece of metal small enough to fit in your palm that nonetheless contains multitudes. The story of the Denver or Philadelphia Mint in 1927, the story of James Earl Fraser's artistic vision, the story of the mechanical failures and human oversights that turned a routine production coin into something utterly and permanently unique, and the story of every collector and numismatist who has held this coin and understood, in that moment, that they were touching something that would outlast everything and everyone around it. So as we close out today's video, I want you to carry something with you. I want you to carry the understanding that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that the coins in your pocket, in your drawer, in your grandmother's old collection, in that jar on your dresser, are worth examining with fresh eyes and genuine attention. Because history has proven again and again that the most incredible numismatic discoveries happen not in vaults and auction houses, but in kitchens and attics and yard sales and estate lots, in the hands of ordinary people who happen to be paying attention at exactly the right moment. And today, having learned about the 1991 D Jefferson Nickel worth $77 million, the 1989 P Jefferson Nickel worth $82 million, the 1928 Buffalo Nickel worth $224 million, and the extraordinary 1927 Buffalo Nickel worth $228 million, you are now better equipped than ever before to recognize what might be hiding in plain sight. So go check your coins, share this video with someone who loves history and treasure, subscribe to CoinNexa Vault so you never miss another discovery like the ones we revealed today, and remember, the next fortune could be sitting right there in your pocket, waiting for you to find it.